I don't really watch the prices right. I've done
Okay.
it like twice or something like that, but for the availability, because they kind of like they give you like a price, right? And then you have to like, or like you basically they give you like an item, and then you have to like basically guess how much it is, like, and you can't like go above it, right? So
Right.
like they just like, I don't know, say a computer, they'll guess whatever they think a computer's worth.
Okay. So let's unpack this. The availability heuristic says if I'm more likely to recall something, if I can easily recall it, the word is it's salient or it's available to me, I will sort of overweight it. It has more influence in my decision making than otherwise.
Yeah, if they like thought that a computer was like $1,000, for example, they'd
But
probably guess that.
I mean,
Or if they recently bought a computer for that much.
yeah, so I'm not saying you're wrong right now. What I am asking is for some clarification because I want to know why is it that if so we're talking about the decision maybe that they're making to bid a certain bid, and I did watch The Price is Right a lot when I was younger, so I do know how it works. The question is, why would certain computers be more available than others, or what is the availableness that you're referring to in terms of computers?
I'm just saying from like their own personal experience, well, like whatever computer they buy or
Hmm.
whatever they know about computers, like if the family member.
Yeah. I think the thing I'm having a hard time with is knowing like what's the other thing. Maybe for an availability heuristic to have some bite to it, there has to be something that's easy to recall and something that's not easy to recall. And the thing that's easy to recall is influencing our decision. The thing that's not easy to recall is not. Whereas if we really took the time to consider all of our options, all of the factors, we would treat these two things the same. But because one is really easy to recall and one isn't, we're treating it. Maybe what you're arguing is that consumers have a certain type of computer that they tend to purchase on their own, or maybe they've seen it advertised on their own, and
Well,
it's more relevant, it's easy to recall, and
wouldn't the
therefore they
easy,
think all computers are going to be like that. I'm not sure.
since like what I'm saying is like that's the easy one to recall. If like that's one that they have experience with, they're not going to know of a different scenario where there's like a, I don't know, $20,000 like server. They're not going to guess that much for a computer because it's not easy to
Okay.
recall. They never
I
had.
mean, I'll certainly read your response and um, try to understand it a little better and maybe give you some feedback in the. I have a little box underneath where I can type feedback if I don't understand it. I noticed Kevin has his hand up. Does he want to talk?
Yeah. Hey. Okay. So the example that I gave like, in my response, it wasn't economics related. It just had to do with was it representative heuristic about like tattooed employee people that are tattooed. And, like,
Oh, okay. So this is another sort of stereotyping.
yeah, yeah. But I want to give like an economics one. Like I want to see that. So the availability one. So let's say like international trade, right? Right. Like maybe like I'm thinking of like when America was trading, not well, America and Britain were actually trading weapons to Iran, and Iran would in turn lowered their oil prices, right? So like that was like what was going on behind the scenes. But like for a while, the U.S. was thinking that OPEC was going to keep the oil price at a certain level. But over time, as Iran started to gain more power, they eventually started raising their oil prices, like just out of like just because it was more profitable for them. But I guess America, like their heuristic, they just assumed that Iran would like keep the price lower if they kept selling. Is that the same thing? Is that like similar? Is that kind of? Am I on the right track? Or am I completely off?
Which heuristic? You saying that's the availability
Yeah,
heuristic?
availability heuristic is like they I don't know, like from previous experience, from previous trade, Iran would have kept their oil price at a certain level, but that didn't happen.
So the thing that's easy to recall is the times when Iran kept their prices low?
I
Is that what you're
suppose,
saying?
or yeah, or the Middle East in general when they kept
And
well,
it's more difficult to recall the times where they raised their prices?
yeah, maybe I.
If that's true, then I would buy there could be some availability heuristic there. But I mean,
Yeah,
I don't personally have evidence from that. I mean, you can speculate that somehow we can talk about high profile, whether something was high profile or low profile. And what does that mean? High profile is something that people are talking about, people are thinking about it. Low profile, it just kind of floats under the radar, people don't notice it. So if you can argue that certain events in the Middle East were more high profile and it led to certain consequences, and other events in the Middle East were low profile and but they also led to consequences. Then I think then you can say, well, because of the availability heuristic, when people are now thinking of the future, they're thinking, what's going to happen now? So if you're like, if you're a trader and you have these oil futures, that's kind of your job is to think about what's going to happen in the next 10 years for a barrel of oil. I want to trade. I want to buy low, sell high. If I think it's if the price is too low, I should what buy them low. If I think the price is too high, I should sell. I should sell them high. So, but in both cases, you're kind of thinking also about the future. Is the price high now relative to what it'll be in the future, or is the price low relative to what it'll be in the future? And in order for what you said to be correct, I think there has to be some difference in how not just one person, but everyone reacts to certain high profile news events.
that have to be everyone in the market.
I kind of think so. Or, maybe you're just talking about one person, but it's more interesting to think about the whole market and everybody.
Yeah,
I sort of think I might have kind of the opposite interpretation that you did. That I think the most high profile thing that can happen in the Middle East is war, isn't it?
as of now,
Um,
right? Yeah, as of now, yeah.
Well, like Iran and Iraq were in a huge war with each other, I think in the 80s. The United States and a coalition went to war with Iraq in the early 90s. Um, and what else happened? There was another Iraq war in 2003 and 4 that lasted a long time. In each of those cases, there is some effect on the price of oil because the supply, if no other reason, there's uncertainty whether the supply of oil can get to us. And so I would argue that if there's an availability heuristic being used, it's that more people are afraid of the price going up because of the wars rather than more people are afraid of the price being low because that's what's happened always. Which I think that's kind of what you were saying, that the United States would had a deal with Iran to keep the oil price low. And I'm not sure that was very high profile, was it? Like how many people on the street, if you were talking to them, did you know the United States has been selling weapons to Iran in order to keep the price of oil down? They would probably like, no, I didn't know that. You know what I mean? Whereas if you said, did you know there was a war in Iraq? They'd say, yeah, I know. I have a friend that was deployed to Iraq, something like that. But once again, this is just me speculating. It's an interesting potential explanation like that. So we got one for representativeness. We had one for representativeness is kind of easy. If you just say anytime there's stereotyping going on, that's representativeness. That's okay. And if you found that as a simple example and you gave one, that's fine. I'll give you credit for it. But sort of in the future in economics exams and quizzes and things like that, it might be better to not just go with, like this sort of discrimination or stereotyping. There's a little bit better economic type examples of that. Not that you did anything wrong, but I'm just saying. What we haven't had yet is anchoring. Anchoring, I think, is probably the strongest in terms of behavioral economics. The one that affects economics maybe the most. I don't know. How do you compare them? I would say probably is anchoring. Did anybody give an example of anchoring in their reading response?
I did.
Oh my gosh, I have to, oh, it's 12:51. We still have like, okay, 40 plus minutes of class time. I want to give us plenty of time to do the quiz. Anybody do an anchoring one that's willing to talk?
Yeah, I did.
Fergus.
I talked about car dealerships anchoring the price of their cars over their actual price so that they can, have people try
Yeah.
to haggle down and still.
Did you get that from my economics videos?
Oh, I hadn't watched those today. I only read the article by Tversky and
Oh,
was
okay. Oh, wait a second. Maybe I
found
got it
them.
from Traverse. So the real
No, I don't.
plagiarism was done by me.
Oh,
Uh,
I don't know if they talked about it in that, because when they talked about anchoring in that, they gave that example of doing the 8 factorial.
Yeah, 8
So I don't.
factorial is certainly just a non-economic. It's a math example, but it's not
Right.
really about decision making, I don't think. But yeah, that. I didn't want you to give one that was already. I think I did say that. Like, try to think of a new one or a different one.
Oh, I didn't intend to copy anything that we had done before.
Oh, that's okay.
That
No,
wasn't my
don't worry about
intent.
it. I thought it was funny because even in my very first video, which is an introduction to behavioral economics, so I could say anything. I could pick any behavioral economic topic and give it as an example in my introductory video. The one that I gave was anchoring on the sticker price for cars. In other words, that when you go in, you buy a car, you almost never pay the sticker price, but you still have this feeling in your gut that if you get a price that's well below the sticker price, it's a good deal. So the sticker price, even though it doesn't really control what we pay, it controls how we feel about what we pay. And because of reference points, there's a reference effect of I think of the sticker price as being, the normal amount you might have to pay if you didn't get a good deal, and then you pay less than it, the less you have to pay, the better the deal. And that is 100% anchoring. When you see that, well, I shouldn't say 100%. I should say that's a good example of anchoring. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you gave in your reading response, but if you did, good. I like that example. It's because if you pay $20,000 for a car, the sticker price is $21,000. You might feel like, oh, that's a pretty good deal. I got $1,000 off. But if you pay $20,500 for a car that's sticker price is $24,000, you might think, oh wow, that's an even better deal. I want that car. I want the car with the sticker price of $24,000, not the car with the sticker price of $21,000. Even if you're indifferent between the two cars, even if you really can't tell the difference in terms of which one do you want more, they're the same. I don't have a preference. Somehow, because of anchoring, we feel like our willingness to pay is affected by this anchor. That's what Dane Ariely showed in some of his experiments, right? It's a really famous one that he did with the wine. It gets cited by a lot of behavioral economists. The fact that these were really smart people. These were like MIT graduate students who had to decide how willing are you to pay for a bottle of wine. And the people with high social security numbers were willing to pay $10 more than the people with low social security numbers on average. And this wasn't just like the top versus the bottom. This was kind of sorting them by whether you're above 50 or below 50. This is something that standard economics should never allow. Why would it have such a big effect? Well, it's because of anchoring. Yeah. So, and then that's why I think of the three biases I had you read about, that's the one that's the most significant in sort of economic theory and sort of changing the way we think about economic theory. Let me tell you about the future without lecturing what's going to be after the quiz, but just talking about what's going to be after the quiz. I think I've decided to have another asynchronous day. So congratulations. We don't have to have a meeting on Monday. I mean, I know you're going to miss my beautiful face and this lovely conversation we're having, but I have made these videos and they're available on vcuecon.com. Let me put that right here. You just search for vcuecon.com and it'll come up. Notice it's not edu. It's a commercial website. It's .com. Or go to any of the links that I have in my Blackboard or in my syllabus or something. And I have a section of videos that are called consumer choice anomalies. It's kind of what we're talking about now, is consumer choice anomalies. But if you watch those videos, the ones on consumer choice anomalies, that's what the class will be for, like on Monday. Instead of having this meeting, just watch those videos, and we'll sort of unpack them, debate them a little bit on Wednesday, but then we'll move on. In other words, we're not gonna. I'm gonna assume that you have that information because you've watched the videos instead of giving it to you for the first time on Wednesday. Does that make sense? Okay, and I'll give you a reminder of that when that comes up. Gabby has a question. What's it? Because this could be on the quiz, everybody. Gabby has a question, and if I answer it, it might help you on the quiz you're about to take. What is the difference between base rate and anchoring? My answer to Gabby is that those are two very, very different things. I don't even know how to tell you about the differences. So I'll just explain them separately about that. A base rate is exactly this: the rate that something happens, or the probability that something is going to occur in some basic way before you even think about any information, just the base rate of something happening. What's a good example? Like cars. How many cars are good cars, and how many cars are bad cars? They're known as lemons. We do this in economics. It's like an official term. A lemon is a car which has something wrong with it. And there's a base rate that says out of every 100 cars, 10 of them are lemons. So that's what a base rate is. It's like, 90% of the cars are fine, 10% of the cars are lemons. And you might say, why do you care about base rates? Well, the reason I brought it up in the class is because there's something called the base rate fallacy. You didn't put the word fallacy in there, but I think it's important to say, I don't just care about base rates. I care about the base rate fallacy, and I want you guys to know what it is too. What is the base rate fallacy? It's when you ignore base rates. That's what the base rate fallacy is. So let's say you're going to buy a car. It's a used car, and you look at it and just think about, you just focus on the parts of the car that you can see and make a judgment. Is it a lemon or not? If you ignore the base rate, like you're making it's a fallacy. You may say, I don't see anything in this car that looks like it will be a lemon. Therefore, I'm 100% sure it's a good car and 0% likelihood that it's a lemon. Well, you've just ignored the base rate of the fact that 10% of the cars are lemons. So if you've learned nothing by looking at the car, you should think, well, there's still a 10% chance it's a lemon. And that's related to the representativeness heuristic, because if all you think about is how similar is this, if you look at the car and say, it looks just like all of the cars which are fine, and you use the representativeness heuristic, you'll think, well, that car is probably fine too. Well, I'm certain this is a fine car. And that's the base rate fallacy. Does that make sense? Whereas anchoring is a different bias. Anchoring is the fact that you are heavily influenced by the first example of a fact or figure when making a judgment or decision. So when you first hear, like we're talking about the Mississippi River, and it's like, what do you guys think? Is the Mississippi River longer than 100 miles or shorter than 100 miles? That 100 miles serves as an anchor because it's the first number that you've associated with the Mississippi River, and your answer will be closer to the anchor than it otherwise will be. And I've said this already with the wine. The Social Security number can act as an anchor. We talked about it for cars with sticker prices. The sticker price can serve as an anchor. What does that mean? It means the first time you see a price associated with the car, that's where your brain is sort of, it drops the anchor right there and says, okay, it's probably going to be similar to that. My willingness to pay for the car is going to be similar to the number that I have as my anchor. Now, just like a ship with an anchor that's stuck to the bottom of the sea, it can still move. And you may not know this about boats and sailing and whatever type of, you know, boating happens. Once you drop an anchor, your ship doesn't stay completely still. It can still move a little bit, but it's limited to how far it can move. That's the idea of anchoring. I hope I answered that. I don't want to just go through every possible thing that could be on the quiz and just like, okay, here's, if I ask about this, here's the answer. If I ask about this, here's the answer. I don't think that kind of serves the class very well. In fact, I'm already thinking maybe we should wrap it up and do the quiz. And just, I'll give you guys like a lot of time to do it. And, you know, I think last time I gave you 20 minutes and some people said that wasn't enough time. So I'll give you more than that. I'll give you 30, maybe even 40 minutes. Well, it's 1:03 now. So at 40 at most, because you're not going to need that much time. What do you guys think? Should we do the quiz? And then on Monday, there will be, I think, 4 videos in that section. Let's get it. I'm assuming that's an encouraging phrase of maybe an enthusiasm is being conveyed by that expression. The parlance of our times. I just want to type in the chat right now the videos I'd like you to watch. It's called Consumer Choice Anomalies. Right? If you go to behavioralecon.com or no, vcuecon.com. Actually, it's just called Consumer Choice on the website, not Consumer Choice Anomalies. I apologize. But in other places, you'll see it written. So it's actually, I guess I abbreviated it to just consumer choice. In my my PowerPoint slides, I do call it consumer choice anomalies because I do care about, you guys probably already know something about consumer choice. No, you don't have to watch it today. You can watch it instead of coming to class Monday. Isn't that nice? You can watch it today. I'm not going to tell you what you can or can't do. But by the way, just to clarify, what do I mean by anomalies versus not having the word anomalies? Consumer choice is very heavily studied in economics. And in fact, not only is it studied, it's modeled. So I consider myself sort of an economist, an economic theorist. You know, I have dabbled in this sort of thing. The model of consumer choice is very, very sort of rigid and mathematical in the sense that we talk about people's budgets, their budget constraints, and we talk about their preferences, and their preferences determine utility functions. I should say their preferences are represented by utility functions, and together the utility function, which is constrained by some sort of budget, is maximized. Consumers maximize utility, and that determines their consumer choice. That's the normal theory. And so the videos that I will have you watch sort of poke holes in that and say, actually, there's all these examples that show maybe the way we decide what to buy, our consumer choices are not just this. I feel like prior to this point in the class, we've done a lot of psychology. What the next section is going to be more like almost marketing. So if you've ever taken any marketing classes, you may have actually already heard of these effects that I'm going to describe, like the decoy effect. You may have heard of the decoy effect already. And in any sort of marketing class, I'm sure they would, not any, but somewhere in the marketing department, they probably have people learn about this, and that's okay. My class is a little bit of a hodgepodge of other people's classes. I do some game theory, I do some experimental economics. I do some psychology. I do some marketing. Okay, but that's what it'll be about. The sort of ways in which consumer choice is different than the standard economic way. Okay. I think I'm ready to let you guys have the quiz now, and I'll give you 33 minutes to do. No, 38 minutes. I'll give you a lot of time. At least 35 minutes. How about that? I don't think I need to record this anymore.